I would like to know why you won't release your tax returns.
I'll tell you. You want the answer? I'm going to give you the answer. Okay? We're non-union companies, and so I've worked hard for 40 years. If I make money or don't make money, that's my business. And you know what? If I disclose those tax returns, union representatives get a hold of my tax returns, go around to my employees' homes at night, and look and say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, how much does your husband make?" She goes, "Well, he makes this." "Well, this guy makes a lot more."
Hey, Sean, can you grab a pen? It's Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker in chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. I'm glad Sean has found his pen so he can keep his notes straight. On this week's show, boom! Yes, the national news exploded this week as Paul Manafort was found guilty on 8 counts, felony charges, and Michael Cohen pled guilty also to 8 counts. 8 counts, right? Was that 8 counts or 6 counts? 8 counts, I believe, to federal campaign violations and tax evasion that implicated Donald Trump. Of course, the resistance has gone nuts. And Michael Cohen, yes, he just got a subpoena. Got subpoenaed by the New York Attorney General for a probe into the Trump Foundation, and apparently was more than happy to comply. Interesting. And back in the news, Sheldon and Miriam Adelson dropped $25 million to the Republican Senate Leadership Fund to keep the Senate in GOP hands. That accounted for most of the $26 million the Senate Leadership Fund brought in last month. By the way, the Democratic Senate fund pales by comparison. And in great news when it comes to net neutrality, Verizon throttles data for the Santa Clara County firefighters battling the Mendocino Complex Fire. You know, the largest fire in the history of California? Yeah. Well, and Verizon would not unthrottle it until the department paid for a new plan that cost twice the amount of the previous one. That's the world we moved into. Why did we talk about net neutrality for so long? Well, I don't know. Here you go. Perfect example. Trump Organization issues a rollback of Obama administration's biggest climate rules. Under the new rules, states may be able to opt out of the Clean Air Act and the Clean Power Plan. Worst case scenario, if legal challenges are lost, that might put the kibosh on all future regulations of greenhouse gases. Crazy. That's important because, well, the Arctic's strongest sea ice off the coast of Greenland broke up for the first time in recorded history this past week. By the way, there's a great interview with Andrew Revkin. He's like one of the most well-known environmental journalists. He was on Chris Hayes' podcast, Why Is This Happening? So check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes. And, according to Inside Climate News, the amount of fresh water used in fracking has jumped 770% between 2011 and 2016. And that's according to a new study published in the journal Science Advances. And that comes as Hawaii is right now bracing for a Category 4 hurricane. 538 gives the Democrats 72% chance of retaking the House. The House! This is super important because 538 nailed the 2016 election. Not. Betsy DeVos, meanwhile, schemes to clear the way for school districts to use federal funds to purchase guns. The money will reportedly come from funds from the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Fund that's supposed to help the nation's poorest schools with academic enrichment programs. Yeah, how about that? Standard & Poor's 500 may just have hit the all-time record for a bull market. And that is good news for the top 5 or 10% of Americans. The rest of us pretty much have gotten the shaft. In our PA focus today, speaking of Paul Manafort, looks like Paul Manafort won't be helping Scott Wagner in the race for Pennsylvania governor after all. Unless he's going to do it from prison. I don't know. Special privileges, maybe? But there is a Koch brother Commonwealth Foundation connected poll that puts Wagner 3 percentage points within that of Tom Wolf. What does that mean? We'll get into that. Scott Wagner won't release his tax returns, not because he wants to be just like Donald Trump, but he doesn't want his workers to know how much money he makes, because then they might want some more. They might even unionize. Finally, Scott Wagner states that he'll consider signing a bill banning same-sex marriage in Pennsylvania, and then he claimed that he was caught off guard as he walked back the comments that he made the following morning. Wagner also walked back transphobic statement on bathroom issue. You know, the bathroom question. People with, quote, male plumbing parts must use the men's room, and women with female plumbing parts must use the ladies' room. That's Scott Wagner, Governor wannabe. Chronicle of Higher Education published a big article on sick buildings at Kutztown University. Yep, I was featured right there. First sentence. Surprise, surprise. Kutztown's administration said there's nothing they can do about unhealthy work. They really care, but they just can't do anything. Governor Wolf and Scott Wagner look to face off in their only debate, and looks like it's going to be a rollicking game of Jeopardy. For real. In today's last call, new beer releases at Free Will. Their annual wet hopped IPA Freshie, that is going to be released on Saturday. I've been waiting for this one for a while. Bitter Buddha came out last Saturday. I just picked up 2 4-packs yesterday, and that's awesome. That's a contemporary ghost with passion fruit, hibiscus, and sea salt. Great stuff. This Sunday, August 26th, from 12 to 8, Free Will is also hosting its 4th Sour Sunday of 2018. Check that out. And I'll give you a little update on the puppy, because I have a puppy. And Sean finally watched The Godfather. He didn't get the Godfather 3, right? Which is not the biggest loss in the world, but just if you're wondering, no, he has not yet watched any of Star Trek. Anything. You haven't watched Battlestar Galactica either, have you? No, definitely not. Right? He's watched some of Star Wars, right? But it's good to know he's getting up on the historic popular culture of our nation. It's good. I love it. We'll talk a little Godfather in the final segment. Want to remind everybody, tune in to the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org, or tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. If you missed a show, go to ricksmithshow.com and click on the Free Speech TV icon in the sidebar, or check out the archives right at freespeech.org. I want to remind you that if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. You can help support Pull No Punch's homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. $5 a month. Think about what that is. It's like a really good beer at a really good bar, right? Or just a halfway decent beer, couple beers once a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. Really, as little as $5 a month, folks. If you're not ready to become a member, no problem. Just go to ragingchickenpress.org, click on the big blue donate button on the sidebar, right? And choose your amount to donate. We'll take anything. $500, $600, it'd be great. With the 2018 midterm elections right around the corner, we need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. The best way to do that is become a member of Raging Chicken Press by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Sean, man, big week in the news this week.
Yeah, did I miss anything?
No. The big story is that the weather broke, and it's not super crazy hot and humid out anymore, and it seems that actually almost like a normal weather day. I think that is the only important news for the week.
Yeah, no, I got up this morning, went out running for the first time outside in forever. So, yeah.
That went well?
Yes, it did.
Well, that's good. I bet you. See anybody down there by the riverside?
I did. I saw someone smoking a Jaybird this morning. And it wasn't me.
And it wasn't you. It wasn't like, I saw my own reflection. No. Well, there you go. No, but seriously, holy crap, man. What a freaking week.
Yeah.
So you got Paul Manafort guilty on 8 counts. I have to say, I wasn't so sure that was going to happen. I really was a little bit like, whoa, okay.
And the news just came out, I think, last night or this morning that the one juror was deadlocked. It was an 11-1 deadlock on the other 10 counts.
Oh, I didn't see this. Good. So so what happened?
This person was a MAGA hat wearing person as well.
Really?
Yes.
Was she
And
wearing
so-
her hat when she was doing interviewed or something like this?
No, but there's pictures of her, I guess, on social media of her wearing a red MAGA hat. And I mean, I guess they're lucky to get 8 guilty verdicts on that, 8 charges.
Well, that's interesting. You know, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean that she. I mean, you know, she did actually go with the 8 counts, and that's kind of important. But that's also interesting because, you know, because there was a mistrial on kind of the remaining counts, the other remaining 10 counts. The prosecutors could choose to retry this case, kind of in the future, for the remaining counts, and that might be one of the reasons, right? If it kind of comes out that she was basically, doing it for political reasons and really wasn't about the evidence. That's something. I was curious about what that number was, and the fact that it was 11-1 is something.
Yeah, and like one of the things I was thinking about with like Manafort is like, I mean, let's be real, he was guilty for being a scumbag, and illegally taking money from overseas dictators.
Yep,
this is pretty much what he's been doing his whole entire career. But I mean, like to me, like the really important thing was Michael Cohen. And, getting brought down.
Holy moly, right.
Like, I guess, like, in this, like, reality TV show that we're living in,
yeah,
we should expect that Donald Trump being taken down by 2 porn stars would be an absolute thing that's within the realm of reason.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, that sounds, that actually, what you just said sounds kind of normal right now. What was interesting about the Cohen thing, I was like, a few things, right? A few things to kind of separate out here is that, it makes total sense that Michael Cohen would plead guilty on at least 6 of the 8 counts, right? In the way that he pled, right? In other words, like there was so much documentary evidence, and it's come out since since then that the Taxi King dude from that Cohen was in business with, that was kind of part of where a lot of this tax evasion stuff came from, that he struck a deal with prosecutors up in Albany when it came to his own prosecution, and at least the suggestion is that a lot of the reasons that they had all the evidence that they did when it came to Michael Cohen was that this guy was able to help them kind of explain it, right? Explain it and show them, or who knows what exactly his involvement was. But so when you have that kind of documentary evidence that you've actually evaded taxes, that totally, this is just a smart move on Cohen's part to kind of like, look, what am I going to do? What was the remaining 2 counts when it came to, the kind of the porn star hush money stuff? The fact that Cohen came forward and said, yes, I did this with the intent of influencing the election, but the fact that he said he was directed by the president, right? He cooperated with, it was directed by the president to do this. Now, it doesn't say the president says a candidate for political office in 2016, but there's, whatever complicated legal reasons.
You can read between the lines here.
Well, I mean, the thing, it's a rule, it's a prosecutorial rule, I guess, that you don't kind of name the person unless they're kind of indicted in this thing. So that's why it's phrased in that way. But that was kind of interesting, and apparently, that in the original document that was coming forward about his pleading guilty, or the information document that was given to the judge for which that Cohen was pleading guilty, that document apparently did not say that part being directed by the president to influence the election, right? That was something that was Michael Cohen's addition. Now, if that was a suggestion of his lawyers, if that was his decision, who knows? But this is the guy that said he was going to take a bullet for Donald Trump, right? And I think that, he got thrown to the wolves so many times by Donald Trump that, at one point he's got to say, like, well, fuck him, right? I mean, here you go. You want to play this game? I'll play back.
I love how, like, yeah. I was going to say, I love how Trump was actually delayed in his response from going on Twitter. It took him until, like, the next morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And calling it a witch hunt.
Yeah. Did you read the Borowitz report this week by any chance?
I did not.
Okay. Andy Borowitz, right? He's a satirist, right? And again, it's the kind of stuff when it's the best thing. Well, first of all, it tells you a little bit about where we're at right now. I should put a link to this in the show notes. So, it was plausible, right? A good satirist is going to, he's going to be the edge of plausibility. But the report comes out, right? The headlines are like, White House on security lockdown, right? After TV gets thrown out window, right? And I sat there for a minute, I'm like, did that actually happen or not? And then I click on the story and see that's like Andy Borowitz, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. But I mean, I could almost see that happening, right? Like, how is it that he didn't tweet right away? Because, well, maybe he threw his phone through a window or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but like, yeah.
That was crazy. So how much do you think, just out of curiosity, how much do you think this is actually going to have an impact on the 2018 elections?
I think it should. I mean, like, so what's the best way of putting this? I think impeachment should be an option at this point. Mm-hmm. Like, if we're living in a normal universe, like, impeachment right now should be an option. I mean, what he did was illegal. He directed Cohen to pay off the porn stars through using campaign cash, and it's exactly what Nixon got busted for. Giving hush money to the people who broke into the Watergate, right? But like, right. I mean, so absolutely, impeachment should be on the table. But I mean, here we are. We're going to ram through Kavanaugh. I mean, I think that's
yeah.
I think if Democrats are going to use the corruption line, I think they should, like, listen, they're stealing a Supreme Court pick and they're getting someone else with a corrupted president.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and it's also the type of thing where I don't know how Joe Manchin or any of these, like, Democrats in the Senate can vote for Kavanaugh after this.
Yeah. I it's going to be, I mean, Schumer came out this week and, whatever, I guess it's Groundhog Day again, right, in the Capitol. So Schumer pops up and decides that, okay, he's going to try to sound like a leader and, say, yeah, we should put everything on hold now that these cases have gone by. And it's like, really, you like, whatever. But it does seem, I don't know. If this is not the occasion to have the strongest pushback possible, right, against like another judge getting appointed by Trump, I can't see what else would. I mean, and if there are no Republicans that come forward and basically say, no, we got to put this stuff on hold until after the midterm elections, because especially all these revelations, because that court could potentially have an impact on the
decades of
the president's future too. Right. I mean, the fact that he might be appointing somebody that is about his own personal, like, legal jeopardy as opposed to the good of the nation. And if there's no Republicans, or let's put it this way, if there's not several Republicans that don't break with the party to say, no, we are not going forward into approving any Supreme Court justice now, then the Republican Party has officially passed every possible threshold it is to say that these are the enemies as a party. Right? The party itself has become the problem. I mean, we've been arguing that for a long time, but I think that should be absolutely clear to any American. And
I think that Blumenthal, is it Senator Blumenthal? Is Blumenthal a senator or is he a House rep?
I'm not sure.
Either someone from the Senate Intelligence Committee or the Senate, like, Judiciary Committee or the House. I forget who it was, but it might have been. I don't know if it was Ron Wyden or not, but like this person was basically saying, like, our democracy is at risk.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true.
That's the type of messaging that has to come from, like, the leadership of the party. It's like,
agreed.
Our democracy, is at risk with this. But Schumer doesn't have the spine to do it.
No, I mean, really, yeah. I mean, exactly. But if I had to message this, it'd be like this. Okay, look, I get it. Let's be clear. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Let's be clear that we have, like, bad partisan issues going on here. But right now, what we're seeing, what's about to happen, if this Supreme Court justice, if we allow this specific president, to nominate a Supreme Court justice and do not stop that from happening, right, we have to start asking much bigger questions about the American Republic. Because if that happens, we have basically set a path for long-term corruption of our democracy, where it becomes, again, takes us back to the Gilded Age, where politics was just bought and sold on the open market.
Yeah, or not even the Gilded Age, like senatorial elections in the late 1800s and stuff like that. Like, where
the Gilded Age.
Okay, yeah. Well, when I think of, like, Gilded Age, I think of, like, the 1920s and the Great Depression era.
Yeah, it goes back before that, but
okay,
but
all
yeah.
right.
but that's it. There was actually a really good Chris Hayes, and again I mentioned Chris Hayes about the interview that he gave with they had with Andrew Revkin on his podcast. He also had an interview this week with Zephyr Teachout, and he was a candidate for Attorney General up in New York. And I think that what was interesting about that, and I didn't know this exactly, but she basically has studied and written about corruption in politics, and that was one of the things that was coming out about what's actually about to take place right now if we don't stop it. And she talked about that period of time, exactly the period of time that you're pointing to, where literally that had to be the high point of corruption in American politics, where literally the vast majority of politicians in the state were basically owned by a few corporations and billionaires or millionaires at the time. And that's kind of, her claim, and she argued it persuasively, is that that's kind of what we're on the threshold of being right now.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. So we're going to see how this plays out. I mean, and I think that it's that much more interesting to see that the Cohen subpoena that followed up on his guilty pleas, that he was actually, at least as reports go, willing to fully cooperate when it came to a probe with the Trump Foundation.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. More dirty laundry gets thrown out into the open.
Yeah, well, it goes to your point. When we'll get some of this, we'll come at this from a different angle when we get to the fun or the last call today. But it really does point to what we're seeing is kind of like racketeering and kind of like the mob orientation of the Trump organization.
Yeah, I mean, like what? Someone wrote an article a couple months ago that like was it I don't know if it was a New Yorker piece or the Atlantic, but someone who had like a really long form article or the Economist, and they were saying that like Trump, like Ivanka and the other people in the Trump family, the younger ones, were crying that Trump won the election because they knew that their dirty laundry was going to be aired out in the open.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that. Like, yep. Manafort would still be a free person if Trump didn't win. Michael Cohen would still be a free person if Trump didn't win.
Yep.
And now, like, their whole entire empire has come crumbling down because Trump had to become president.
There you go. And it's really true, and I think that, again, go ahead. Sorry. I
know. I was going to say, what we're seeing here is like the nepotism from like the stories of like Saddam Hussein and his family. Like this is the type of nepotism we're seeing. Like you see like in the Middle East, Mubarak and stuff like this, where the family is just enriching themselves, and it's happening right here.
Exactly. And this is where, I get really cautious when, you see Democrats get all revved up about this collusion stuff, right, with Russia. Like I have personally, I believe there's some degree or another that went on, right? Whether it was overtly agreed to or whatever. But the thing is that what we're talking about a global logic, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. What we see is Putin, Russia's, and these strongman politicians, right? Just what you're talking about with Mubarak, it's a particular logic of rule, right? And those folks are building networks with each other, whether it's explicit or implicit, right? And this is kind of why what you understand that this is a mob rule, right, is kind of contesting, right, democracy globally. Then you start to see this stuff happening. And so what your only option at this point, especially when you have a Republican Party has been fully saturated by collusion with that mob rule, right? Not necessarily with Russia directly, but with the mob rule mentality. Then the Republican Party has to go. At least as it stands. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
So. But at least some people decide, seem to not want to be interested in letting that happen. Like Sheldon and Miriam Adelson, for example, dropping $30 million in Republican Senate Leadership Fund to basically try to make sure that the Senate stays in GOP hands. I mean, that's, again, this is like the story of dark money all over again.
It's not surprising. I mean, they do this every election cycle now. Now, the Democrats, do they have more or less money in their funds?
Less money. So
okay.
Yeah, so basically where we're at with that. Here, let me just pull this up real quick. So basically what we have, let me find the one. Here we go. So basically what we're seeing here, right, is that the Democrats, they have a PAC too as well, right? So the Senate Leadership Fund is the one for Republicans. The Senate Majority PAC is the Democratic one, right? So here, let me give you, and this is again from Politico. So Senate Republicans, the Adelsons also gave $30 million back in May for the House stuff, but that's a different thing. So, let's see. So the Senate Majority PAC, I'm reading from Politico, the main Democratic super PAC active in Senate races, raised $7.4 million in July, including more than $1 million from Carla Jurvetson, a California physician and the ex-wife of venture capitalist, and goes into the book. So it gives you that kind of example, right? So $7.4 million versus $26 million, right? So that should give you a sense of where things are. The Senate Leadership Fund as a whole has raised, that's the Republican PAC, has raised $44 million this past year. Let me see if I can pull out the number for the Democratic PAC in particular. Senate Majority PAC had total $23.9 million on hand by July 31st. So maybe they have about 40%, 45% less than Republicans going into the fall. Right, and that's because you've got people like Sheldon and Miriam Adelson willing to drop like $25 million on a hat in order to do this. Thanks again to the new, to the Citizens United decision for the Supreme Court. And if we get yet another Supreme Court appointee, we've already got the one. We can guarantee that this kind of spending is going to continue.
Yeah.
So that's always the concern, right? So now again, let's say this. So we've got, those are PACs, right? So those are official, those official PACs that are going on there. What the Democrats got going for them is that, okay, yeah, they don't have the same kind of mega donors that you see on the right wing. But you're going to have a lot of smaller contributions that are going to be coming in going forward, and those are going to be behind specific candidates and so on. But that should be of concern because money does matter when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, but I also think this year shows you that the money voters can win. Or the Democrats can win without having all the money behind them.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
The primaries have showed that. And it's also the type of stuff like it's where the Democrats are spending their money, or the Democratic organizations like Steyer with Next Gen and all, they're dumping resources into getting the youth vote out there and also into getting out the vote campaigns. And that's where the Democrats have always held the advantage, is like driving people to the polls and that get out the vote.
Yep. Well, and I think that's actually an advantage too as well when it comes to progressive politics too as well, because a lot of those organizations that are getting involved, right, that are not strictly controlled by the Democratic Party, right, are coming from kind of more progressive angles, right? Not all of them, but a good chunk of them, and that's good news, right, for the support for progressive candidates in 2018.
Yeah.
So crazy. So in our kind of ongoing discussion of elections have consequences, this is, if you remember, the FCC basically rolled back net neutrality rules this past year, right? And Ajit Pai was, Trump appointee, kind of comes there to kind of end net neutrality. You heard on this podcast, we've been writing about this at Raging Chicken, and the end of net neutrality means that you basically tell companies that they get to regulate your data and they can throttle your data whenever they want, under the terms that they want. And here's a perfect example of how this is on the verge of catastrophe. Right? This is, remember, we've talked about this in the podcast too as well. The unbelievable historic fires out in California, right? In particular, the Mendocino Complex Fire, the biggest in California's history. You've got fire departments from all over the country and world really coming in to help try to battle this blaze. The Santa Clara County firefighters, we're finding they had this one kind of mobile unit, right, which served as their kind of like mobile unit, kind of hotspot, if you will, that was there for communication among all the firefighters in different areas, right, to make sure that they're putting resources where they need to go. They started noticing that their speeds were extraordinarily slow. They weren't able to update and keep the data updating as quickly as they needed to. Couldn't figure out what was going on, so they started calling Verizon, and they said, "Oh yeah, it turns out that your plan doesn't allow for that. And if I, say that if you want that data to kind of like keep flowing at a fast rate, you're going to have to upgrade your plan." And they would not, right? The firefighters are like, We've got guys that are out there like at the edge of the flames that we need to make sure they're not gonna die because you're telling us our data is off, and they're like kind of like throwing up their hands in the air. Well, then
gotta pay double.
Then you're just gonna have to buy a new plan, right? And sure enough, it wasn't until the fire department bought a plan that cost twice as much that Verizon unthrottled their data. Right. And again, this is going to be only one of thousands of stories like this that we're going to hear.
And it's going to make out so well with disaster capitalism too.
Yep.
With climate change coming and all.
Totally. Exactly. And you know what I thought? This is like the perfect example of why we started to talk about a nationalizing of the kind of communication infrastructure. Right. I mean, seriously, I was thinking about it. The only way that you combat this kind of like profit taking, right, at the expense of people is that you nationalize the infrastructure. If you want these corporations that, have access to it, that's fine. But like I'm telling us as the people should own the entire infrastructure, the towers and everything like this. And then if you want to join in, you want a company that wants to kind of play in this field, then you have to abide by these conditions. Right. And that's what we said. And that's what I think we have. So it's not like saying we nationalize Verizon. Right. Although I'm not necessarily opposed to that either. But not even that. You want to keep that little market thing. That's fine. But anything that's infrastructure, because remember, the airways are supposed to be ours as the people. Right. And the fact that we have allowed private corporations to take over those airways, starting back when Bill Clinton deregulated so much the FCC. Right. Is disgusting. And here's the result. Right. Now, thank God, at least as far as we know, none of the firefighters that from the Santa Clara County Department were actually killed as a result of this. But it's coming, folks. Unless we kind of turn this back and get people like Ajit Pai with his stupid ass Reese's Pieces mug, kind of the hell out of government. Right. So crazy, man. And so, and again, this like follows right into what we saw this week also when it comes to climate change stuff. I mean, the Trump administration, again, we can't, these would normally be huge stories if we didn't have a fucking mobster in the office right now, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, look at this. The Trump organization rolled back Obama administration's biggest climate rules. Basically, what happened under the Clean Power Plan. And again, there's all sorts of problems. Like we've talked about this on the podcast about the limitations of Obama's Clean Power Plan, right? It wasn't bold enough. It wasn't where we need to be. Right. But it did do certain things. Right. It basically said, OK, the EPA has the right to like set limits and regulate like CO2. Right.
So I was listening to MSNBC this week.
Yeah.
And one of the people they had on there was like a regular host. And they're like, well, if you think about it, he's not really getting rid of the Clean Power Plan. He's just changing up the name and it's all the same parts are intact. So it's really like not that bad. Not that bad of a deal.
It's unbelievable.
I just sit here. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yep.
Like this is what passes for news on the liberal channel.
No, exactly. And this is where so much can happen. And again, if we were in a different world and some of these things were to happen, that there could be reporters and journalists that could dig down into this and it would actually make evening news. But it's the fact that this stuff is so buried is really problematic because what happens, it's true that a lot of this plan is remaining intact, right? But all you have to do, if you know anything about contract language and if you know anything about policy language, all you have to do is change specific, very small changes that can alter the entire plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when it comes to Betsy DeVos too as well. But what they basically did in what the Trump organization has done here is they said, okay, all we're going to do is that we're going to say that states can opt out, right? That if it finds the state, it's best it's left up to the states. And so basically what that does is that any state that is a massive polluter can say, nope, we're not going to do it. Right. And then therefore it undercuts the entire plan. And that's how you actually destroy government. That's what Republicans have been doing now for decades. Right. You do these small changes that, to the average person who doesn't pay attention to politics 24/7, of their lives. It's like, oh, okay, not a big deal. Then they move on with their lives. But that small change actually affects the entire plan. So what was what was put in place that would have actually had an impact on regulating this, the emissions of CO2. And that had to do with like the complex rules of basically the Clean Power Plan that use the electrical grid as a way of kind of regulating the production of energy, right, and kind of and your CO2 emissions. But that's being undone. And and this is coming at the time, and I mentioned this at the beginning. We just saw this news this week that there's this area off the coast of Greenland, which is considered the strongest area of sea ice, right? We've heard now for at least the past decade about the Arctic sea ice breaking up over the summer, right at the North Pole and stuff in ways that it had never done before, right? Almost to the point where it's expected every year. But there was this one place that was off the coast of Greenland that was, scientists thought, it's going to be years, like maybe decades even, before we see that melting of that ice, in part because way it's positioned with the currents, the fact that it's next to a major landmass, it's not affected by, the ocean currents in the same way. Nope, they were wrong. And now the scientists are like, holy crap. Right, we're seeing this sea ice that we didn't expect to break up for, 10, 20, 30 years, is now breaking up now. For the first time in history, it broke up. Right? That's big news. And the fact that we're sitting by and doing nothing, right, or undoing the limited regulations, the limited moves that the Obama administration made is horrifying in my mind. Yeah. Sean says, yeah.
Yep. I mean, like, what else we're going to do? This is like beating a dead horse at this point with the, like, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean just shaking his head. He's like shaking his head. He's taking some notes with his pen.
I mean, it astounds me, like the amount of anti-science intellectualism and how that has taken over a mainstream political party.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean,
well, or even, and that I would say it's even for that. It's not just the Republican Party, right? It's also a big section of the Democratic Party, right? The whole idea about natural gas is the transition to like
it's not a transition fuel,
right? It's not a transition fuel. It's not that, and
we're gonna frack everything until it can't be fracked anymore, and then we're gonna be screwed because we didn't start, laying out the infrastructure for massive renewable scales.
Exactly. And we've talked about this on this podcast before about how that, again, we see all these studies that come out showing that actually, natural gas is not a bridge fuel because of once you consider the entire operation as a whole, instead of just the burning of the gas, the extraction, everything, you're talking about maybe break even, if not even more.
And methane's worse of a greenhouse gas than anything.
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, that's all. And so now we see this new report that comes out, a new study that was published in the journal Science Advances, that fresh water, right, that's used in fracking, right, that's pumped out of, for example, here in Pennsylvania, pumped out of the Susquehanna River, right, not just the Susquehanna River, but that's a big chunk of it, comes out of Susquehanna River. I watch, drive by this all the time when I'm going to see my folks, and I'm driving up 476. Or driving up 81, actually. Up there, you see the big trucks that are pulled off to the side. There used to be trucks and tankers that used to just pull up to the Susquehanna River there and drain it out. Now there's actually a full pipeline of kind of that just pipes the water out into these massive tankers that get picked up and brought up to the fracking sites. But that's the kind of thing that we see, between 2011 and 2016, that an increase in water use, fresh water use in fracking by 770%. Thank God at least that we don't need fresh water. I mean, that's,
No. I mean, like most of the water that goes into the Susquehanna is just filled with shit and raw sewage, according to Scott Wagner, our one anti-science person running for office. So we don't really need to pay attention to that.
No, definitely not. Especially because,
would you want to swim in the Susquehanna?
Closer to the sun
would I want to
every year.
Oh, there he is. Sorry. Would I want to swim in the Susquehanna? Yes, I would, which is why I'd like it clean, right? Not filled with like fracking fluid is the problem.
Yeah.
But and even like you take Susquehanna, maybe down by Harrisburg and things like this. But there's sections of the Susquehanna which there's people that swim in regularly and that kind of stuff, right? And we should be protecting those waterways as opposed to freaking using them as dumping grounds. But anyways, I mean, I don't know. This is so frustrating with me, because you see this stuff with the freshwater use. Is it because, it's not just, you don't just have the...
But it gets replenishes. It gets replenished from all the rain we just had.
Well, that's a good thing. So actually, we should be pumping more CO2 into the air so we have more rain.
And there's more water going into the river so we can go frack with. And
my God. It's bad, man. It's bad, I have to say. But, whatever. This is where we're at. Yeah. So, Sean, you said this morning that 538 is, we should say before that, we should, have your eyes out and kind of, thoughts and prayers, man. No, but seriously, say what happens in Hawaii. Hawaii is now bracing for a Category 4 hurricane, which, ironic. Well, I don't know if it's ironically or not. I was listening to a report on NPR this morning about this, but apparently, Hawaii's had several near misses over the past decade or so. So people aren't as prepared as they might otherwise be, at least that they were saying. But now there's real concern because, as you were saying here, they're already feeling the effects of this hurricane.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to make a turn.
Away from Hawaii?
Yeah, but it's going to go up to the edge.
It's going to go up to the edge. Because didn't you say they already had 14 inches of rain or something like this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Well, man, I hope it doesn't hit them, but we'll see. All right, so Sean, break down this stuff. New report by 538.
No, I was just checking 538 this morning before we went on, and they're giving Democrats a 70% chance of taking back the House. They're looking anywhere between 33 and 32 seats is going to be the average.
So that's the House.
Yes.
That's this has been not everyone I should say, but common wisdom has been that it's going to be a serious uphill battle for the Democrats to take back the House.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's the Senate, but it looks like that it was getting closer and tighter when it came to the House about whether or not they're going to take that back.
Yeah, it's a 70-30 shot.
70-30 shot. That's pretty good.
And they're looking anywhere between 23 and 55 seats.
But what do they? Do they have anything to say about the Senate there too as well, or is it they're just looking at the House?
I have not seen anything about the Senate. I mean, it's probably on here. I'm
just curious because when we look at this, because the Senate has always looked like the biggest uphill battle, in part because the Democrats are defending something like 26 seats or 20 some odd seats, where Republicans are only defending 9.
Yeah,
I think that's the number. I'm not 100% sure, but they're it's a much more of an uphill battle when it comes to the Senate. But if you're looking at a 70-30 chance for the House, that's some good news.
Yeah, 70-30 for the House. I don't see anything on the Senate.
No, we'll keep an eye on that. Crazy. So yeah, I mean, as we get closer, again, what we're going to find out when we're less than 3 months away from the 2018 midterms, and then as soon as those midterms end, that's when everything is going to kick in high gear for 2020. So man, I'm telling you, everybody, we could seriously use a report. I got some ideas about some of the things that I want to be doing with Raging Chicken moving forward to make sure that we're there to cover it. So again, if you can chip in, become a member, patreon.com/RC Press, that'd be awesome. Two other kind of small things I want to mention before we go out. Not small, but necessarily. Betsy DeVos, I was mentioned before that a lot of what we see about the undoing of government happens in these small policy changes that take place in documents and programs that most people just don't pay attention to. But they're doing the same thing now in the Department of Education under the leadership of Betsy DeVos. And remember the good old friend from Pennsylvania, Frank Brogan, who's now up there too as well. They're looking, there's this program, it's called the Student Support and Academic Enrichment, right? And it's a fund that is, supposed to help kind of underserved schools, provide, academic enrichment opportunities for kids that don't normally get them, help out kids with learning disabilities, help out kind of increase, buy supplies that are necessary, even help with, special needs kids and that kind of stuff. And they're specifically targeted to help that out. Well, what they're looking to do is do something very simple. And unless you're paying strict attention to this stuff, you don't even know that it's happened. So according to the New York Times, what Betsy DeVos is trying to do is, well, here's the thing. in the past support in that program in the past for have these federal funds going to these schools, it was explicitly said, right, that these funds may not be used to buy firearms, right? So the whole idea was that no, this is not for school security stuff, right? This is not for guns and things like that. This is actually focused on student learning, right? Not kind of like, defense of the school, okay? So that was explicitly prohibited in that program. So all that Betsy DeVos and her goons want to do here is basically remove that clause, right? So if you were reading it, right, you wouldn't know that that was a huge change. But basically the difference is that under the current program, schools cannot use those funds to buy weapons, right? They have to use it for kind of academic support, academic programs that are going to help underserved schools. But if you remove that prohibition, now they're perfectly capable, perfectly able to go and buy guns with them. And why that matters is because those school districts who know that they want to buy guns with these funds and looking for funds to do this will now be able to use them, right? So there's our good old Betsy DeVos up there in the Department of Education, everybody. Go. And I bet you, how much you want to bet that they'll bring in Eric Prince, right, from the Blackwater fame to come in and give their trainings. Keep it in the family.
In the family, yep.
Yep, more mobsters. Crazy. So, yep, that'll just about do it for our national wrap up. Anything else you got to add in there, Sean?
Nothing really.
Nothing really. So when we come back, we're going to come back to, Pennsylvania got all sorts of crazy this week, man. All sorts of crazy. And Sean's going to kind of take us through a bunch of this stuff. The Scott Wagner, man, again, I'm going to be the last person in the world who is going to say that he's definitely not going to be elected, right? Because I just don't trust that anymore. However, if you're trying real hard, right, to completely tank a campaign and tank a candidacy, man, Wagner's working hard at that. I'll tell you that. Crazy. All right. So when we come back, we will get into our Pennsylvania focus. Remind everybody, if you can, become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Go to patreon.com/RC Press today. Become a member for as little as $5 a month. Our membership is what makes us here. That keeps us here. Right, we would not be able to. I just had to pay. I'll give you an example. I just had to pay our annual server space stuff, right? And it's a chunk of change. Let me tell you. And we had to upgrade. If you remember, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, last year we had to upgrade our servers because we got hacked. Number one. Right, and it took us a while to kind of get back up and get back at full speed. We kept on having denial of service attacks, which basically was ramping up our hits so that nobody could access our site. So we had to actually switch companies and kind of change our servers. We had Seth Goldstein come in, basically to help us a lot with security stuff. And then basically, look, we had a bunch of articles. Sean had several articles. I had some articles that kind of came out. There's other ones that went crazy, right? That had national traction, and we needed to expand our server space just to accommodate the traffic. And that cost money, folks. And the only way that we were able to do that is because people like you stepped up and became members of Raging Chicken for as little $5 a month. And again, I just met with Seth a couple of weeks ago, last week, I guess, and we've had to look at some other security issues once again because on a daily basis, I get probably about 5 to 10 notifications that people have been trying to actually get into our site. And luckily, thanks to the security updates that Seth did, that these people are getting locked out. But we're getting the notifications about these attempts. And it's not a coincidence that this is happening as we lead up to the 2018 elections, and after Sean has had a couple things that have gone really haywire when it comes to social media. So if you can become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month, just go to patreon.com/RC Press today. When we come back, it's our PA Focus. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not issue her a diploma. She was able to still go to college at Berkeley, where she eventually earned her Ph.D. She married carpenter and labor organizer William Bud Reynolds. She became a prolific folk singer, playing around the Los Angeles area. During the 1960s, she wrote about songs supporting civil rights and labor rights. Her song, Free Enterprise, offers the lyrics, "The air you breathe is poison. The food you eat is worse. The dollars in your paycheck are pennies in your purse. There's nothing free about it. You pay at every turn, except the guys in Wall Street who have the stuff to burn. They had to make new brain machines to count their profits rise, but since there's always room for more, they can still make their profits soar. A little war does wonders for free enterprise." Perhaps her most well-known song is Little Boxes. The song was inspired by driving by hillside houses in Daly City, California. It talks about the conformity of middle-class suburbia.
They are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
And a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
I'm in the waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
Yes, everybody, it is Senator Soprano, former Senator Soprano, and candidate for governor Scott Wagner. He's like, nobody understands. It's messed up. It's disrespectful. Good old Scott Wagner. So it's been a pretty big week for Scott Wagner in some ways.
I don't know where to start.
Start at the very beginning.
So I guess, like, to put this week into perspective, we should talk about the poll that came out, putting Scott Wagner within 3 points. Even though I really poll is like a 16, he's down by like 16 points.
Yep.
This poll by the Commonwealth Leaders Fund. So anything with Commonwealth is like one big dog whistle these days.
You hear every time you hear Commonwealth, this is what you got to hear, right? You know, just as like a big alert, red alert, everybody.
So the Commonwealth Leaders Fund is funded by these. They're saying they're nonpartisan, but they're funded by a bunch of like right-wing libertarian hacks. The largest donor is this guy named Gerard Alexander from AEI, American Enterprise Institute, making he gave $50,000. Now there's this guy named Barnsfeld. He gave $20,000, right? And David Barnsfeld used to work with the Commonwealth Foundation, which is what Matt Briette's group. Mm-hmm. And this group is trying to pull up some more information. So there's that. This group is ran by a person named Jeff Kendall, right? And Matt Briette, former Commonwealth Foundation president, he also gave $1,000 to this group. So and the current president of the Commonwealth Foundation, Charles Mitchell, gave $1,000 to this group. So it's not really the most like sane, the most unbiased poll out there.
Right.
And so if you look at Jeff Kendall, David Evans, Barnsfeld, and Matt Briette and see what they're all at right now, the three of them all sit on the Commonwealth Chamber of Entrepreneurs. Commonwealth, whatever, like some bullshit group, C7 group that Matt Briette started. And it just shows you how how this Koch brother money is trying to influence the election.
Well, there you have it. Got to question those polls, that's for sure.
And so they use this in an email sent to a journalist who didn't end up writing on it. And when they called in to question the poll, they went right into attacking the person from Franklin and Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Got his face right in my head. Why can't I?
Terry Madonna.
Yeah, Terry Madonna. Thank you. Oh
They
my
end
God.
up attacking
I'm sorry,
Madonna.
Terry, if you listen to this.
They end up attacking Terry Madonna, and they're trying to make Terry Madonna out to be a partisan hack.
Yeah.
Because Terry Madonna was asked to run in a special election in a vacant seat, like back in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to use that as saying everything that he does is just completely shit polls. Where like this poll that like this Koch brother group put out oversampled like the 65 and over crowd by like 45% of their constituency, when like 8% was 18 to 30 and like 20% for the other two.
Right.
So completely oversampled Trump supporters and completely oversampled older people 65 and over. And they're trying to like generate some good press for Wagner, and then Wagner used that as a campaign fundraising email. It just shows you how desperate for money they are at this point.
Well,
but
what's interesting about the thing you just showed, like this is, we've talked about the Overton window thing, right? Before, about shifting discourse in some way. This is just such a perfect example of their strategy and their tactics about how they do this. I'm talking about they, meaning these kind of right-wing hacks like Commonwealth Foundation and so on. Is what they do is they take like a mainstream kind of like centerline polling thing, right? And they say, right, they make a claim that has no basis in fact whatsoever, but they say that, hey, look at this over here. Those are a bunch of liberal hacks, like tools of the Democratic Party, right? Here's our poll, right? And so people then say, well, you guys are biased over there. But what happens a lot of times in the media is they accept the frame that there's this one on one side of things, there's Terry Madonna's poll. On the other side, there's the Commonwealth Foundation, and the truth must be somewhere in the middle. But now that middle is so far to the right, when in fact the truth is much closer to the Terry Madonna poll.
well, so like no one really talks about no one in the media will attack Terry Madonna, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. He's one of the most respected and reputable political scientists in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right. And
they're just everyone sort of just, I mean, like they'll publish those responses, but they'll pretty much get laughed at. And Chris Brennan wrote this piece for the Philly Enquirer, Philly.com clout page, I believe. And he pretty much didn't mention anything about Terry Madonna in there, but pretty much the first thing like everyone did when this poll came out, they pulled up their campaign finance reports and see who's funding it. Like, oh, these guys are,
right,
just a bunch of right-wing hacks.
Right.
So,
well, it's true that journalists might not do this, right? But when that stuff gets out in the media and gets into the bloodstream, right, that becomes part of the issue.
Oh well, everyone just started calling them out on Twitter right away, and there was just no way to ignore it.
Yeah, good.
So, I mean, that's a good way to preface Scott Wagner's wonderful week. We went into the week with him making a joke about how Vladimir Putin and Paul Manafort will be helping him out in the this campaign.
That was a good joke.
That really aged well.
Yeah, exactly.
Complete self-aware.
Exactly.
And so, like that's just the media around with that. So
let's take that. Number one there is making a joke that Manafort and Putin are going to help him out his campaign. Let's just make sure that we're kind of like ticking these things off as we go along. Okay.
So the other big thing, probably the bigger thing this week, is how he attacked the LGBTQ community at an Erie town hall. Basically said he would consider signing a bill rescinding same-sex marriage in Pennsylvania when he was asked this by a supporter. And then he immediately had to walk back the statements the following day, saying that he fully supports the right for LGBTQ members to have engaged in same-sex marriages. And then at the same thing that he didn't get reported on, he also made this comment about the bathroom bill, bathroom issues. And that's how like this person asked him. He's like, so the person asked him a question about being how pro-life you are, and then the bathroom issue.
Mm-hmm.
And on the bathroom issue, Scott Wagner says, if you're born with male plumbing, you must use the men's room. If you're born with female plumbing, you use the ladies' room, period.
And I bet you that went over really well in that audience, too, as well.
It did. People started clapping and cheering.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what he's been doing. He's been pandering people to vote, and then pandering for votes. And then when he gets called out on it in the media, they have to immediately walk back the statements.
Yep.
And they had to walk back in the Pittsburgh City paper which basically said that he would have to, you would have to use the bathroom that you're assigned with on your government-issued ID.
Right. So, and again, number one, right? He comes out and basically says that he wants Putin and Manafort to help him out in their campaign, quote-unquote joke. Number two, right, he says he's actually going to kind of like, he'd be more than happy to kind of vote for a law, right, that would strike down same-sex marriage, right? And number three, right, he's talking about plumbing parts, right, and against the transgender community. So we've got three major things. And I think it's important, right, he has to, quote-unquote, walk back this stuff, right? But the fact is, he's consistent with the most extremist positions that are out there. And it's only when the media confronts him on it. But when he's talking to his supporters...
Oh, he'll just say the most extreme shit as possible just to get pander to those votes.
Right. And I don't even think it's just to do that. I don't think there's any reason that
That's what he believes in.
Exactly. There you go. And I think that we should take him at his word that's what he's going to do. His responses, especially when they're this consistent, should be taken as this is what he's going to bring to Pennsylvania.
And then, number 4.
Dun, dun, dun! This is a good one.
He's been getting hammered constantly for the past couple weeks for not releasing his tax returns. And it's gotten to the point where, a couple of Democratic operatives have got stories published where, Wagner has been going after people, Wolf's money, and Wagner's trying to be this self-made man when Wagner's uncle has actually been really influential in his wealth. Wagner's uncle owns Kinsley Construction Company, which is one of the largest construction companies in the Mid-Atlantic region. Like they have contracts for construction and stuff in York County and in Maryland and stuff like that. So he's been getting hammered on this. And the Kinsley family is actually one of his largest campaign contributors too. So he's getting hammered on this. And, this tax return stuff. So he got asked about it at a town hall, the same town hall.
The same town hall.
As the other two. And he basically said that he doesn't want to release his tax returns because he doesn't want his workers finding out how much money he makes because they may actually form a union.
Oh, my God. There you go. Again. Plain as freaking day, people. Is like, not he doesn't want to release his tax returns because of privacy and all that. No. Because he wants to basically make sure that his workers are paid like crap. Because if they knew the amount of money that he was raking in, because I'm sure he's lied to all of them saying, we're going through tough times, like all these freaking right-wing hacks do. Right, and then there's like, oh, okay, I guess this is all we can do. And if they knew the amount of money that he was extracting from the backs of their labor, that they would go out and form a union because they're like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? They told me you couldn't give me a 5-cent raise, and this guy's making blah blah blah. And he says, nope, I want to make sure that I continue to suppress workers' rights to organize by not releasing my tax returns. There you go. Well, again, what's crazy about this, you make that statement, you're basically telling your workers, telling everybody that you make such a shitload of money, right, that your workers would be appalled if they learned that was going on, right? I mean, isn't that like the effect of what I'm saying?
He pretty much shot himself in the foot with that.
I know. It's like, now you don't even need to release your tax returns because now all your workers should be... Right, exactly.
And it just shows you, like, how uncoached he is. Mm-hmm. Which, like, people are thinking, like, he would be getting coached up because he's running an important election. And nope, I don't even think he's getting outside help at this point.
No.
It doesn't appear.
No, and I think, look, the guy, this guy himself, right, is such a prick. I mean, he's so arrogant. Yeah. What's that?
It's really easy to goad him into questions.
Totally.
And just have him. I mean, like, so one of the things he's been complaining about is like that Governor Wolf has not signed on to any debates, and he was demanding for the first few months after the primary. First few weeks, he won 67 debates in all 67 counties of Pennsylvania, and Wolf is just giving him one debate.
Well, Wolf is saying number one, I've got actually a job to do over here, but at least this debate sounds like it's going to be kind of well watched, since it will be kind of like in the format of Jeopardy, if I understand right.
Yes, Mr. Trebek is going to be.
Okay, seriously, man. This just freaking blows my mind.
The only debate of the 2018 election in this race is going to be hosted by Alex Trebek.
Like, what the hell? How does that even happen?
So this debate's going to be hosted by. So this is a function that's going to be hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Business and Industry, and so I think they do this every year. This is actually a tradition for them. They get like some sort of like a co-star like gaming show person to come in.
Some kind of minor celebrity.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think Alex Trebek is a little bit more than a minor celebrity.
Whatever.
But it just shows you the state of our politics in 2018.
Yeah, we're going to have a freaking game show host come on, and he's going to one who's going to be like running the debate. I was when I saw that.
It's so apt for this like fucking this campaign though.
It is. Oh, totally.
It is like it.
I would love it. You know what would be great? It would be great if Wolf just started answering questions like,
what is your tax returns?
Yeah, I'll take tax returns for 1,000, Alex. That'd be awesome. I mean, it would be. I mean, just as a spectacle, that'd be awesome if they actually had the Jeopardy board behind him, right? With okay, what questions you want to go? Oh, it'd be great, man. It'd be great. And you keep on having to think. So, can we talk about your tax returns? They get the buzzer out.
You can make this into a Saturday Night Light-up. Is it going to be like now? Is it really going to be Alex Trebek, or will Sean Connery be there doing?
I'll take Sean Connery any day. Look, and this is, again, it's not, whatever. It's a Chamber of Commerce likes to do this thing, and they think it's all fun, and they get to raise their own money for their own thing. That's probably what's all behind it. But I mean, come on. I mean, this is like
one of the things I think, like the obvious point is here. It's amazing watching, like their wheels are just coming off the campaign right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even at Labor Day weekend yet.
Yeah, I know. Here we go, right? I don't even know, man. I don't even know. So let me ask you this. So why what's Wolf's argument or kind of for not wanting to do more debates than this?
I don't know, but I think he's only agreed to doing this one debate.
I'm just kind of curious about. I mean,
I think it's just an incumbent game he's playing.
Yeah.
And it's also like, I mean, Wagner has no problem going around the state and just keep on threatening shit.
Yeah,
at these
right. And I think
halls.
that, I bet you part of the calculation there is one, yes, exactly what you're saying is like the incumbent stuff, that he doesn't have to do the debate. But number two, you know kind of what's going to happen, right? Wagner lies, right? He says things that are untrue. Right, that he basically will do anything.
Doesn't act in good faith.
Right, so that's all that's going to happen. It's going to be about this kind of.
And there'll be nothing but petty attacks and mudslinging.
Exactly. That it's not about kind of any serious consideration of the issues and all that. And I think that's kind of he's playing. I would, however, love to see a debate between Scott Wagner and John Fetterman. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or bring in Bartos. What the hell is Bartos doing these days?
He's trying to keep Scott Wagner in line.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Not doing a very good job, I have to say.
Yeah.
That's what he's running for. Oh, anyways, anything else on the Wagner front this week? I mean, not that that's like not enough already, right? I mean, but
no, nothing else going on the Wagner front.
Oh, good. Well, let me say this. We'll kind of wrap this out with. So this week, this summer, one of the things I did on my summer vacation was spend some time with a reporter from the Chronicle of Higher Education who was doing a story on building conditions, basically, and academic building conditions. And it turns out... Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say you were wearing an awesome shirt.
Did you like that?
Yes.
Did you like that? The shirt that I wore had basically little rockets with explosions on it, right? So that was the shirt that I wore. My picture is actually in the Chronicle of Higher Education for that. But Mike Gambone and I, he's the membership chair of APSCUF KU, who's worked kind of tirelessly, Gambone has, worked tirelessly at uncovering and bringing attention to and bringing forward these problems of kind of the building conditions at the building that actually I work in and that Mike works in Lytle Hall, but also in Old Main, which is the oldest building on Kutztown University's campus, and DeFran, which is kind of where the business school is located, and the Learning Center. I mean, building after building after building, where we've had long-term, persistent issues, health issues, right? So, and when I mean by health issues, I mean that you actually have black mold seeping through the ceiling tiles because of unrepaired pipes, right? And you'd bring in, you basically file your work orders to get the stuff repaired. They say that they repaired it, but it turns out all they really did is replace the ceiling tile and wrap the asbestos pipes in more wrapping to try to prevent them from leaking further. Right, so it's been Band-Aids after Band-Aids for, seriously, as long as I've been there. And I've been there I was there for 2002, for 16 years now. Right, so to give an example, the beginning of the article, and this is a story that I can't remember if I've actually told this on the podcast before, but this I believe it was my second year at Kutztown. It was my first or second year, first time I taught summer classes, and I was coming in for the summer. Back when summer classes actually happened on campus and everything wasn't online like it is now. But this is how the Chronicle article begins. It says, the first time Kevin Mahoney felt something wasn't right at Kutztown University of Pennsylvania was about 15 years ago when he was walking into Lytle Hall to teach his first summer English course. The hallway walls, despite the building's HVAC, were dripping with moisture and carried a strong, musty smell. The color looked strange. The professor of rhetoric and composition said, and the air inside, or the color looked strange, the professor of rhetoric and composition said, and the air inside the building felt muggy. What's up with the walls? He asked a senior faculty member who had been working at Kutztown much longer. Are they repainting? The senior faculty member laughed. Oh no, that's just the mold. Mahoney was confused. Mold in his new workplace was worrying enough, but why was his colleagues so resigned to it? Right? And that's kind of the baseline of the story that has been this ongoing struggle with Lytle Hall. Like, we actually have emails from the administration and things like this recognizing that there's a health standard. We've had the Pennsylvania, again, thanks to Mike Gambone's work, we've had the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry come in to evaluate the building and basically corroborate every single claim that we've made, right, about mold in the buildings, about, mice leaving crap all over the place. All sorts of issues. We had people have had asthma attacks. We've had students who have fainted, right, in the middle of class times because there's certain portions of the building that are just way too hot. We have emails, and we've gone to meetings with discussions that say the problem with this Lytle Hall where I'm at is that the concrete that they use just basically saps up water right from the foundation, so that always creates this internal humidity problem. Right, so basically, professors, when I first got there, right, in 2002, professors had been working with this and been living with those conditions for so long that they just thrown their hands up because nothing was getting done. We started work on that issue probably 2004, right? And it was only after years of struggle with the administration that we had to threaten lawsuits before they actually came in, right? And we actually bought, Mike was, again, kind of right front and center for this one, started buying humidity detectors, right, that you buy and leave them around to see that the levels were so incredibly high. We had to threaten basically a lawsuit and a series of grievances before they would even agree to bring in these massive dehumidifiers over the summers to solve the persistent mold problem. They did nothing about the mold that was up in the ceiling tiles, right, and all throughout the building. But at least they did that, and then it was a constant fight to do this. So, not only is this in our building in Lytle Hall, but actually where the Kutztown University Police Department is located in the basement. First of all, you locate the University Police Department in a moldy, crumbling basement of the university. You would think, from an administration perspective, just for your own self-interest, that you'd want to keep the university police somewhat happy, right? No, instead, they put them in these areas that have, again, they've got radon issues, right? Way above, skyrocketed levels above what is acceptable in Pennsylvania.
Which is not that hard to take care of.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Radon is pretty easy to take care of. All you need is a passive system where air is just flowing through all the time.
Right, exactly. And you have a pipe that runs through the foundation. You put in this kind of drain that basically pipe that constantly pushes out air as a way to kind of solve it out, right? And again, nobody is saying that these are not old buildings. Nobody is saying that, these are problems to get through. These are fixable problems, right? They are fixable problems.
Radon's like the easiest thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So you got, and again, so you have radon, you have persistent mold. You go over into DeFrancisco, where Modern Languages was located for a long time, where the business schools, and again, same kind of problems, right? And again, that's happening at the same time you're seeing huge investments taking place at other parts of the university. Like, planting hundreds of swamp white oak trees around campus last summer or 2 summers ago to beautify the campus, right? One year it was kind of like something like $100,000 or more that was put into new signage across the campus to give its brand, right, and kind of an importance. To, win awards, right, on groundskeeping, right, and the appearance of the university, right? All the aesthetic stuff that the administration is convinced that is what higher education is about. It's about a PR offensive, about the aesthetic stuff to get students to campus. Once they get here, forget about them. We're going to cut programs for academic enrichment. We're going to cut programs that are about kind of like making sure that students get the academic support that they need, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to let the buildings in those departments that we don't really care about, like English and math and history, like in my building, right? We're just going to let them kind of like live in the worst kind of buildings, right?
Oh no, like I will say from going to Kutztown.
Yeah.
My worst experiences were Old Main. Being in that type of building is just like inadequate air conditioning, it's like 85 degrees in the classroom, and so stuffy. Being in Lytle Hall, DeFran, I was laying there a few times, but not too much. And then I thought the best part of that story was the part at the Ether. In BAME.
Yeah.
I mean, I was probably there when that happened, like as a student.
Yep. And again, this is so BAME here. Well, here's the story of BAME, right? BAME is one of the newer buildings on campus, so it's not like one of the old crumbling infrastructure problems. It was a new building that was commissioned, right?
It's probably one of the nicest buildings too.
Yeah, and once again, they went with lowest bidder. A whole bunch of non-union contractors came in to kind of to do the work, right? Not all of them were non-contractors, but there was a dispute over that. So they came in when that building first went online, was first ready to go, right? They panicked right before the beginning of the semester, because when everything got hooked up and they finally hooked up the HVAC system in there, I can't make this up. It started raining inside the building because they hooked up the HVAC system incorrectly. Right, so basically what it was doing was creating a feedback loop inside the building, right, pumping in moisture and heat to and then condensation such that water was falling out of the air, right, and creating puddles on the floor. I mean, it was like that kind of insanity, right? Then after that, once all the stuff started happening, right, Paul Quinn, who's a physics professor over there, in his physics lab, he had to consistently bring in garbage cans, put them on top of the lab tables because water was dripping from pipes during the lab sessions, right? So, and we've got pictures of all this stuff. We've had this going on for over a decade, right? And then, worst of all, right, because it's a science building and you've got chemistry experiments going on and stuff, you have to have ventilation that is actually going to get out any potentially harmful gases, right? Well, guess what? The ether stuff doesn't work, right? So the ether was actually leaking into the hallways, right, of BAME Science Building, right? And here's what drives me crazy, okay? When we bring these things forward, and again, anybody at any university or any large organization out there who works in a building that has these kind of issues, this will be familiar to you, because Kutztown is not alone in this, right? This has to do with a specific approach to management and the way that administrators and the way that people treat their workers. And it doesn't matter if you're at the end, if you're at, a Walmart employee, right? Or if you're a professor of the university, right? If you are not part of that administrative kind of priority, right? They will shit on you. And this is exactly what they've done, right? Basically what happened is They say, and this was one of my favorite comments that was in the article. They went to Terry Brown. Terry Brown is the Assistant Vice President of Maintenance and Facilities, right? And this is his quote, right? He says, "The important thing is we really do try to be proactive with this," right? Said Terry Brown, right? He said the administration has gone above and beyond testing Old Main for any health concerns. It's not like we ignored, he said. Brown said building complaints from the faculty were most likely isolated incidents. In general, and in Lytle in particular, there are a lot of folks who are perfectly, well, he didn't say perfectly, who are content with their conditions, right? This is very isolated, not a general issue across campus at all, right? And the fact that they would say this publicly, when it's just flat out wrong, incorrect, a lie about what the experience is. So this article comes out, right? And I encourage you, I'll put a link in here, and I'm going to have a piece coming out in Raging Chicken about this too as well. And the fact is what they do, they say this consistently, and they try to, instead of addressing the problems, they try to make those of us who are bringing the problems forward seem like we're just kind of a bunch of whiners on the margin, that we're in the minority. There's a few of us out there that have problems. Everyone else is perfectly fine, right? When we know, like, I'm going to give you an example. So this Hawkinson, who's President Hawkinson, who's president of the Kutztown University, right? The day after the article, or day and a half after the article comes out, he sends an email to faculty saying, "To the Kutztown University community, response to Chronicle of Higher Education article." Right? And he basically says, after a bunch of blah, 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 since July 1st, 2015, we have invested more than $13 million in a maintenance project at Kutztown University. If we included auxiliary renovations, the investment was an additional $36 million. Right? So he says this, but what does that mean? Right? What does that actually mean? So that you've invested in that since July 2015. Right? The date is important. Like, why? Because that's when he started. Right? So it's like any other history before then is just thrown out the window. Like, as if these haven't been persistent problems. So let's even give him the credit to say that, okay, maybe he invested more. But we don't know if he's actually invested more, where that money has been put in. You say into maintenance project, what project have they been? Have they gone into fixing those problems? Right? No mention of that whatsoever. But he does say, hey, KU has been acknowledged by the state system as leading the university, the amount of money we devote to maintenance and the high quality of our physical plant. Like, what the hell that means, we don't know. But if anyone walks around our campus, he says, they will see the beauty of our grounds and the continual upkeep that we perform on our roofs, facades, sidewalks, landscaping, underground steam lines, and HVAC systems in our buildings. Right? Load of crap. And again, not that they don't do these things, right? But the question is, are the problems that are causing the health issues, are they being fixed? Doesn't mention that. Then he says, for example, this past summer, this run we're finishing right now, we invested $2.5 million in repairs of our buildings and grounds to include repairs to the campus steam system distribution system, classroom renovation in Old Main to address water issues, which acknowledges that there has been a problem, prevented, and the only reason that they're doing that, I should say, is because Mike Gambone got the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry to come in and do a report to say that need to be fixed. And the deadline, I think, is today or yesterday or something like this. Right? The deadline, they're mandated to fix this stuff by the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry because they would not address them before then. Where's the mention of that? Nowhere. Right? They act as if the administration is this kind of benevolent kind of organization or group of people that are trying to do their best, when what they don't acknowledge is the only reason they're doing that work is because they've been forced to do it, that they would like to have not have done it. Right? So it says that. And then they said that we've also been working in Lytle Hall. We are on a list of authorized projects to build a new Lytle Hall with a commitment of $17.5 million from the state and $6 million from Kutztown University. However, we invested $2 million in a new HVAC system this last summer, and as I noted above, additional resources this summer. Please note that alternative office space is available to anyone who does not want to work in Lytle Hall. Right? Now, here's the thing. This building was supposed to be replaced ages ago. There were plans with the building because they knew that this building was a problem. And they had the plans, 2009, something like this, 2000s, maybe even before that. They were going to do this. They had money allocated for it, and then they decided not to do it. Right? So then, okay, there's a problem, right? So you're going to build this other building. Now you decide for whatever reason not to go forward with the project, even though you're supposed to have money for it. So now you're going to send people back to that building that has known health issues without addressing those issues and hope for the best. And that's what they did. And it was, once again, it was only against, and this is what just gets under my keister every single time, gets under my skin, is when you have a president of a university come out and basically not acknowledge the fact that the only reason that they did any of those renovations to Lytle Hall was because faculty in Lytle Hall and across the campus demanded they did. And when they did nothing, when they said it was just isolated individuals, right, that were having problems. And I'm sorry, if you're having asthma attacks while you're in a building, you can have your office on the other side of campus, even though it's away from all your classrooms, even though it's away from everyone else in your department, even though it kind of isolates you on campus. You can go over there. We'll make accommodations for you if you're having asthma attacks in the building, not recognizing the fact that there's something that's causing the asthma attacks, right? And that's not good for anybody. Right? And the fact that they came in last summer and I had to move out of my office, right? I had to move out of my office, take everything out as everyone else in the building did because they were going to do these HVAC was only because, right? Again, they were forced to do so because the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry had to do a report to show that there was persistent problems. And they were forced to actually acknowledge that the problems were there. And we've got all these documents showing that they acknowledged the problems. And they were forced to do that, so that's why they did it. And then the kicker is the problem was not fixed. They spent $2 billion and they screwed up the job. It took them months to get the everything working right. You'd walk into your office building and it would be frigid. You walk into the hall and it felt like you were going into a sauna. Because they didn't have the right system that was put in place. And so that's why they're back this summer to spend more money, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they spend, not sure, tens of thousands maybe, I don't know, to redo the entire, put in these dehumidifier systems all in the hallways in the first floor of the building, right? And again, they had to be forced to do that. So what drives me insane is that these people can make these statements to the media, right? Act as if they did this out of the kindness of their heart or part of their professional responsibility of the administration, instead of being forced to do so. It disgusts me. And the fact that, look, this is what I've said so many different times. People sometimes look at us as faculty, right? As faculty, well, you guys are kind of privileged, blah, blah. I said, yeah, exactly. And if we are going to sit by and take that, what does that say about everybody else who doesn't have the same kind of job security we have because they're not part of a unionized shop? They're not part of a privilege, kind of a privilege aspect of the workforce, which all the more reason why, if you're a faculty member, you're facing these kind of issues and you're not fighting tooth and nail for them, I don't know what the hell the problem is, right? And, again, this is so much, I have to tell you, so much of what has gone forward for this has to do with I'm telling you, the consistent work of Mike Gambone and the membership chair at Kutztown University, Abscuf KU. That literally the guy walks around he's a history professor, for Christ's sake. And he walks around campus with a ladder because people are having problems and no one's fixing them. So he goes up and he takes pictures of the mold, of the rat shit, of whatever else that it might be until the stuff gets fixed. The problem here is not that Kutztown University is just an old university. No. It's that they have so deeply cut the staff, the maintenance staff at the university. They have cut has been their solution to everything. They've diverted resources to their priority projects while telling the rest of the entire university, well, we have no money, we have a budget crisis. Well, we can't help you, but we're going to help them over there as long as you keep quiet, right? That's the plan. And that's the kind of stuff that has got to end. And it's only this kind of percent stuff. But I'll tell you one thing. It's like, and again, this is what the administration counts on, is it's freaking exhausting to have to do this every single year. Freaking exhausting. And Mike and I sit there, we were working with this Chronicle higher education reporter over the summer. And Tegan, she did a fantastic job on the article. Again, what the Chronicle is, she really dug into a lot of the details. In the final article, you'll see that a bunch of the reports and the specifics of the LNI reports, the labor and industry reports, are not in there and things like this. You kind of expect that going the Chronicle of higher education. They tend to lean towards administration. But it's a really good article to get that out, and we're going to have some follow-up on that. But so, folks, I got to go back to school on Monday, right? And I was, I got a little puppy, right? Like my kids are getting ready for school, right? And, to have this stuff brought back to the forward and see that this stuff comes out and to see the kind of disingenuous responses that this administration gives to the public and gives to the kind of most prestigious national publication, Chronicle of Higher Education, just to protect their own PR butts is disgusting to me. So we've got a lot of work to do. I know. I've got a lot of work to do. I've been exhausted in terms of having to kind of go for it. And, frankly, when it comes to my own contributions and this kind of stuff, I've been tired, right? And I have to gear myself back up to try to kind of get back into the game and start doing the daily work that's going to take to organize, especially in the face of Janice. So, anyways, that's my little closeout, a happy back to school message, right? So for all of you who are coming to Kutztown University in the fall, don't be disparaged by what I'm saying, because I'll tell you, who's active on campus? It's not just the faculty members, it's also the students on our campus. We have a chapter of PA Student Power Network right on Kutztown University campus, and those students are freaking awesome. Those students are basically bringing their concerns forward too as well. The only thing that has ever changed anything has been the active mobilization or organizing of people. Right? And students are organizing, and I'll tell you, that's the best thing. Is when students organize, the administration is forced to listen. They can brush aside our concerns as faculty members as much as they want, and they do. Right? They could really care less about what we do if we're not on their number one priority list. So there you have it. So anyways, I'm all worked up now. It's a good thing that we're going to go in today's last call. Happy back to school season, everybody. I look forward to seeing new students coming into Kutztown University. I will be at APSCUFs, that's our faculty union. I'll be at our tent on Saturday morning. I will be there at our opening ceremonies on Friday to look Hawkinson in the face and basically let him know that I know he's full of shit. And we're going to move forward from there. So this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, raging more than ever. We'll be back with today's last call right after this message. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull-no-punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's today's last call. Oh, man, I'm glad to actually move into something that's a little bit more lightheaded after that last little rant that I went on. It was a good thing, though, that Sean did get to take a nap, which was good. So I think he was a little tired after his run this morning, and especially after his wardrobe malfunctions that he may or may not tell you about.
You got that runner's eye going on.
Yeah, you got the runner's eye going on. Is that what they call it? Is that what the kids are calling it these days? The runner's eye?
Like, see, you got running, and then you have a really good feeling of euphoria afterwards.
Yeah. That's from the running?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You should try it sometime.
Yeah, okay. I might. Keep it going, man. Man. Well, I do have a couple beer releases to talk about this week. Free Will, again, right down the street from me in Percy, PA. Free Will, they put out this beer that's called Freshie. It's their annual wet hopped IPA. They canned it earlier in the week, and it's coming to be released on Saturday, August 25th. And here's the description of it. The beer uses fresh whole cone hops from Sunny Bray Hop Farm, picked off the vine and brewed the same day to ensure the fresh hop characteristics. One of our favorite brews to drink, right? That can release will be coming out on Saturday. And it's cool. They had some great pictures. If you go to their Facebook page, Free Will Brewing Facebook page, and you look at that, some great pictures of the hops being trucked in and them kind of dumping the stuff out when they first got it. So it literally was right from the farm, bagged from the farm, right to the brewery, and to kind of brew it. So that was awesome to see. The other one that came out last Saturday. So it was after our podcast last week. It's called Bitter Buddha. It's a contemporary ghost with passion fruit, hibiscus, and sea salt. It comes in at like 6.1%. 16-ounce pack cans are available, both locations. I haven't had it yet. I just got was there yesterday to pick up mine, so I'll let you know next week how it was. But it's gotten some really good reviews. People are seeming to like it quite a bit. So get down there and check it out. And if you're looking for an occasion to get the Free Will, this Sunday is a great time to get it. They're hosting its fourth Sour Sunday of 2018. That's this Sunday, August 26th from 12 to 8. Again, should be awesome. Please do check it out if you can. And, I got a question once from somebody about, said, hey, are you advertising? Is Free Will advertising for you? Or are you getting paid to say all this stuff, right? I'm like, actually, no. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's like, what you're hearing about here on the podcast is, stuff that's local. I mean, stuff that I know about, stuff that I'm kind of actively drinking. We don't get anything from Free Will, although I would not be opposed to that, I have to say. Free Will wants to kind of shoot some money our way. I'd be happy to have it. But, the whole idea is like, I believe in kind of supporting kind of local stuff. And the fact that I got a brewery in the town that I live in that brews really good beer, I'm more than happy to be a booster, and kind of support the stuff they do. But, look, if you're listening to this podcast, you listen to Last Call, you've got your favorite brewery, let us know. We got a tip last week, if you recall, about a great new brewery out in Hamburg. It's a 1787 Brewing Company. And we actually had some listeners and kind of supporters of the program actually go to the brewery and check it out. So, I mean, that's what I love to hear. So if you got a tip, you want to kind of highlight a particular brewery in your town, or it doesn't have to be a brewery. It might be a kind of like a small farm or a bakery or something like this. Anything that you think you want to give a shout out on the podcast, it'd be great. We tend on this podcast on Out the Coop, we tend to focus on the beer in the last one. So, we give the privilege to the breweries and distilleries and that kind of stuff here. But on Free Range that I do with Colleen Fitzgerald, and we're way behind, and I'm getting that next episode out. I'm sorry about that. It's primarily my fault because of my schedule, and I got sick, and so it's been pretty nuts. But hopefully we'll have something coming out there soon too as well. So that's my update. But the bigger news, I'll get the beer stuff out of the way, because the bigger news is that Sean watched The Godfather for the first time ever. Right? And the fact that it was this first time ever, I'm sure I knew this, but it still came as a surprise to me, because I can't believe you haven't watched The Godfather. But you watched it.
No, I watched it over the weekend. It's on Netflix right now, and I watched 1 and 2. I liked it.
There's Sean's review. I liked it.
Well, no, I mean, like,
I liked it.
I mean, I wasn't like blown away by it the way that like people talk about it and everything, but it's a good movie. The first two, it follows like a classic like Greek tragedy, and the same template of like all these other movies these days. But I mean, I'm into that like genre. I'm in that genre anyway. Like my favorite actor to follow is Daniel Day-Lewis, and one of my favorite movies of his is There Will Be Blood. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that yet or no?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, like that's one of my favorite. Like, so I'm into those type of like those movies and all.
Well, so Daniel Day-Lewis. So I mean,
That's my challenge. By the ancient laws of combat.
Yeah, you're a Daniel Day-Lewis fan, right?
Yes, I am. I think he's one of the best actors that's out there. I mean, he won.
He's done now, though.
He might be back. He'll probably be back.
Yeah, we'll see. I remember, back from Last of the Mohegans, man. back in I can remember that movie, just loving that movie, loving for him his stuff in it.
Well, it's actually funny. Like, he is a carpenter in his downtime.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he's picking up like the method acting stuff. I mean, like when he was in Gangs in New York, he studied to be a butcher for a year.
Yep.
So I mean, he's really into like his roles, which is awesome.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, I think with The Godfather, though, I think the key thing with the Godfather, I think that why I don't think Godfather is the kind of like, oh my God, that was freaking like that kind of that kind of response. I think it's a real serious good movie. Where just that you see the developments of the characters and the acting is fantastic, and it's like this an insider, and I grew up in a mob town, right, and so there were so many echoes of just the kind of cultural aspects of what you saw in that movie, that were I don't know, was so great. And again, you've got Brando in there. He's got to see your famous the way he's talking about you. Come here, let me help you. That whole kind of thing is kind of iconic in American culture.
It was actually funny. I was reading something on Brando this week. He actually didn't give a shit about his acting roles with The Godfather.
No.
I mean, there were people wearing like cue cards, like in the scenes, so he could remember his lines and everything.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? So he gets raised up so much for that movie. So many people have said like, yeah, Rando really didn't really want to do it half the time. He's like, he was quite a character to begin with, but
yeah.
So, did you have a favorite scene?
Not really.
Oh, sorry, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, I was
Ask you about a movie you watched.
I like the flashbacks in part 2. Mm-hmm. Seeing with De Niro and stuff like that going when he goes back to Italy to kill the person, stuff like that. I mean, I thought that was good.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I like the fact, like that's the 1 and 2. The fact that 2 actually brings you back to the kind of like the historical connections, right? Back to Italy and stuff. I think is interesting. But 3, I know 3 gets panned all the time, and I'm not going to sit here and argue that 3 is a great movie. But I definitely think you should watch it. I definitely think you should watch it at some point.
I might watch it over the weekend.
Yeah, and I think that I said this to Sean before the show, but if here's my case for Godfather 3. Like Godfather 3 gets panned all the time, I'll say personally, I didn't love watching the movie. I didn't think it was like a great movie or something like that. But I think in terms of the saga, like one of the things that you kind of part 3 is kind of a letdown. Right, but if you think about it in terms of like the disintegration of a particular kind of like way of life, right, and the turning into this crass kind of pathetic, like mundane nothingness, right, and watching that, and I think that is also reflected in the way that the movie is, right. It just kind of seems so petty. Right. And again, I think that makes sense in terms of like the 3 of them. Although, I'm not, that doesn't mean I'm running out to watch Godfather 3, believe me. But it's kind of, I think it's important to kind of see the entire trilogy. Just kind of think about it in those terms. If you have it. Yeah.
I think along those lines, one of my favorite movies is Raging Bull.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. Like, it's top 3.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
there you go. So, as you know, Sean is getting up a little bit more on his, American popular culture, historical American popular culture. But just to be clear to everybody, right, he has still not watched Star Trek, right? Which is a great disappointment to me because Star Trek really is the metaphor of our past and our present and our future. But whatever, I will not convince Sean of that.
I have no interest in seeing Star Trek.
Yeah, and it's a shame because if you want to know about kind of like some of the best arguments that were ever put forward, like on the screen, right, against capitalism, there you have it, right there on Star Trek. But whatever, no, that's fine. That's fine. If you ever want to kind of look at that was a non-dystopic version, which I tend to gravitate towards the dystopic, vision stuff. But you want a non-dystopic vision of what it actually might look like to be a post-capitalist kind of question about whether we're talking about socialism, although Picard makes a pretty kind of strong case for it in one of the movies. But just saying, you should do that. Or not, just keep on kind of pretending that it's irrelevant, You did, however, you got through part of Star Wars, so...
Yeah. So do you want to hear like a really
sci-fi
bad,
light?
Do you want to hear like a really bad pop culture fuck up I had the other day?
Sure, please do tell.
I think you would appreciate this. So I'm at the Midtown Tavern. I was having a few beers. I was able to get we had like the past week they had the St. Boniface, it's a really nice brewery out in Ephrata, their Galaxy IPA on, so I'm drinking that. And I'm eating my dinner, which I got like a nice wrap and chips, and this music's playing. And I said, what's this like Beach Boy like shit that's on right now? And here it was Punk Rock High School by the Ramones.
Oh my god!
And I felt like the person next to me almost fucking died.
Wait, Punk Rock High School or Rock and Roll High School?
Rock and Roll High School.
Oh, so you don't even know the name of it, basically.
Yeah, I was like, "What's this Beach Boy shit that's on the
oh
fucking
my god
on the speakers right now?"
You should have been tarred and feathered, man. Tarred and feathered for that.
I don't know if like the guy was shocked or stunned sitting next to me. It's a regular that I know, and he's like he was like,
for real? For real? Did
like,
you
really?
just say that? About the Ramones, man? That's that's personal, man. It's personal. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is a pretty big one. It's big of you to admit it though on air though. I mean, I have to say.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll put that in our intro. Oh man. Crazy. Well, man, anything else going on? Got any plans?
No, nothing really.
Man, I
Don't
know
watch Phillies lose.
What's that?
Watching the Phillies start move up on their postseason.
There you go. Back to sports. Always back to sports.
Hey, Eagles start in 2 weeks.
There you go. So we got to hear about that now.
Yep, Super Bowl champs.
All I have to say, my kids, for the first time, they both have jerseys, Eagles jerseys going into the fall. So they were. I mean, last year. I mean, that's what it took. I tried. Look,
you're being a really bad anarcho-syndicalist here.
No, actually, the argument can be just the opposite of that, but we can get into that another time. But I actually tried to, early on for the longest time, I loved watching football. I mean, I was a Steelers fan, grew up Steelers fan, and in my head when we first had kids, I was always looking forward to that. Oh man, I get to watch this with my kids and blah blah blah. My son wasn't that interested in it. My daughter a little bit here and there, but whatever. And so I watched the Super Bowl, the ones where the Seahawks won. Right, Rowan my son actually kind of enjoyed watching that a little bit, and Seahawks became his favorite team for a bit, but that wasn't really kind of invested. Last year, however, that because I think there's so many Eagles fans around, so they were talking about it at school, and we watched the Super Bowl, and it was such a freaking amazing game, right? That that kind of I don't know what's the word, that kind of got the ball rolling or whatever one I'm saying you want to say. But that was great. So they wanted to they have the spirit days at school and all that kind of stuff, and they would kind of half-heartedly wear like green or something like this. But now they actually wanted uniform, or not uniforms, but they wanted a shirt. So they both got Carson Wentz. So that's where it goes from there. I was kept on trying to get him to get number 55, right, because it was defense that won the freaking game.
Brandon Graham.
Yeah. But,
or Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one thing about a lot of people aren't watching football because of what's happening with Kaepernick. But one thing about the Eagles is they're definitely the wokest franchise in the league with their players and stuff like that, and that's always good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that and that's always good, and we can have all sorts of qualifications when it comes to football. I haven't watched football that much, not because I didn't enjoy watching, just because I just ran out of time to do stuff, and if I got no one else watching with me, it's kind of hard to justify, right?
Oh, it's easy for me to justify watch football whenever.
No, totally. But for me, it's like, say like, hey, say to my wife, hey, you watch the kids for 3 hours, even though you're on call or whatever. Like you take the kids for 3 hours while I sit down and watch TV. That's just kind of a hard sell. And plus, I've got I just always have work to do. Anyways, all right, man. Anything else for the good of the order?
That's it.
All right, man. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I want to remind you once again that if you can become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month, it really, really helps us keep going, and helps us kind of imagine what we're going to do kind of moving forward. So this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I wish you all an awesome week. The weather is finally broke, at least here in this part of Pennsylvania. And for those of you who are going back to college this weekend, all the best to you. Here's to an awesome academic year. And for those folks who are sending their kids back to public school in 2 weeks, I'm looking forward to it too. All right. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back next week on Friday. We're coming back to our regular Friday schedule. See ya!